Hello there, and welcome to Wildcard Decks, where we go through decks with leaders and cards that are less used or not forming a part of the main meta, to my knowledge anyway. So the link to today's deck can be found in the description below, along with my profile if you want to look at my other decks. So in terms of an overview of this deck, most Grand Inquisitors I've come across go full out attack and fizzle out. This deck is built to bide your time and then pick your moment to set you up to go on the offensive, with a bit of sneaky healing potential thrown in. The inherent weaknesses in this deck are facing any opponents that have got a good ambush presence, Tarkin Town, and a heavy space presence. So Tarkin Town, obviously, because you're going to be damaging your own units, it can be a case of trying to bait them out to an extent, so that ability is gotten rid of. So it's not going to take out something that is perhaps of a higher value to you. So we'll have a look at the leader first, and then we'll go into the rest of the deck. So as a reminder for what Grand Inquisitor can do, he can deal 2 damage to a friendly unit with 3 or less power to ready it up. So this gives potential for a unit to attack twice in a phase. It gives potential for a unit that you've deployed to attack in the same phase that it's deployed. So deployed units come in exhausted, but you can ready it up to attack regardless anyway. This is especially useful when you're against a deck which has a lot of insta-kill, such as Power of Dark Side, Takedown, Rivals Fall, Vanquish, all of those cards that a lot of people do not like. It also means that you're unlikely to have the initiative the initiative often, as his ability will be used most phases. It makes it very hard for your opponent's plan, as every single unit in this deck can be deployed and readied in the same phase. From memory anyway. I might have got that slightly incorrect. No, every unit can be readied. Yeah, unlicensed headhunter. We'll get onto that later. Whoops. He deploys on 6 resources, which is fairly late, especially for what his stat line is. It's pretty bad. 3 attack, 6 health. He's not going to be winning any games on his own. His on attack ability changes slightly, as you can see. Deals just a 1 damage, but the same restriction applies of friendly unit with 3 or less power, but readies them up. It is possible on his deployment phase that you can basically use his readying ability twice. So once when he's not, once when he's out, can provide a significant swing for you to potentially be on the way to winning the game if you're not already. In terms of base, we use Security Complex. It's not very commonly used, but there are quite a lot of good targets in this deck to be able to give a shield token to. We've got quite a lot of gritted units, so they're going to be very flimsy when they're powered up, that you're going to want to protect. We've got a few other units that are got very useful on attack abilities, etc. So we'll get into those a bit later. In terms of a numbers game, it's a very unit-based deck. Got a decent number of events as well that synergize well, and a piddly amount of upgrades. As you can see, very ground focused. It's an inherent weakness in this deck. There are some cards that I think help mitigate that, but yeah. In terms of resource cost, don't even have anything above 5 cost. Because of Grand Inquisitor's ability, he gets a lot of value out of cheaper units, and if you have multiples of them, again, it makes it very hard for the opponent to defend against and keep up with. In terms of rarity, most of it is common and uncommon, a few rares thrown in, no legendaries whatsoever, so I think this is a relatively achievable deck to put together and not spend an absolute fortune on. So, onto the ground units, which is where the fun begins. Harlebon Enforcer and Scoutbite Pursuer, pretty much exactly the same as each other, except for the fact Harlebon Enforcer costs just for 1, but that's because it has a bounty on it of drawing a card, which is not a particularly scary bounty to have, so it's not one we're fussed about. We'll take the trade-off of it costing 1 less. But with Grand Inquisitor's ability, when he's not deployed, do 2 damage to it, and Scout Bike, it has free power all of a sudden. You can hit their base first turn, first phase for free, which is quite nice. Fifth Brother. So, should say this page is all the gritted units. Fifth Brother technically doesn't have grit, but he has a kind of pseudo grit because the damage on him gets converted into raid. So, if he's got 1 damage, then he hits for 3. Quite nice. Now, I didn't realise quite how good Fifth Brother could be, especially with Grand Inquisitor, because he's easier to set up. If you use Grand Inquisitor's readying ability, so he has 2 damage on him, there can be a temptation to do his on attack as well. I would advise against that because when he's only got 2 health, he actually has the potential to take out a unit that's got 6 health. How, you might ask? Well, because when he's got 2 damage on him, he's attacking for 4. When you use the on attack, then you deal 1 damage to himself, so he's attacking for 5, and then 1 damage to another ground unit. So if you do that to the enemy unit that's got 6 health on it, then excellent maths, 5 plus 1 equals 6. They are dead. I've been able to do this against a Ray leader. I didn't. That was actually the point that I realised. Oh yeah, this guy, a 3 costed unit, can take out a 6 health unit, which is generally going to be more expensive than him. So very useful. If he's on 2 health, save the on attack for a 6 health unit. It's going to get you out of a situation. One thing to note as well, if there are no enemy units, then the on attack, you have to deal the damage to one of your own units. So just something to bear in mind. Deathwatch Loyalists, we've got 2 of. This is a good target for the security complex to shield up. So 1 use of Grand Inquisitor's ability puts him up to 5 attack with only 1 health. Does have Overwhelm as well, so if you have shielded him up and want to get rid of something, then you might get some bonus damage onto a base as well. But yeah, a good early damage dealer. Sonara San can be an absolute powerhouse. She has grit as well, 3 power, so she can be readied up with him. She has 6 health, so in total you could get her up to 8 attack. If you do get to those upper power levels, then again, she is another good target for the security complex to give her a shield. She does have a bounty, which is deal 5 damage to a base, so unless you're playing Twin Suns, that is going to be your base. Or if your opponent is playing Anakin, they might want to put it onto themselves in the new set. But this bounty only applies when she's exhausted. So if they take her out when she's ready, it doesn't do anything. Apart from losing your powerhouse, of course. If you attack with her into a unit and she dies, then she's exhausted, the bounty takes effect. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So the wildcard section is where we highlight 1 card that is either, in my experience, underused or underused in the context of this leader and deck, etc. So the client itself, he is not, I would say, underused, but I've not really seen him in conversations with the Grand Inquisitor. So what does he do? I'm sure you all know what he does, but he comes in shielded and he can put a bounty of healing 5 damage from the base. So it has to exhaust him. So interestingly with Grand Inquisitor, he has 2 power, so he's a good target to be readied up by Grand Inquisitor. And the first time you do that, he's shielded, so he doesn't even take any damage from it potentially. But the main reason we have him in this deck is because of the readying potential. In any phase, you could put a bounty on as normal, then use Grand Inquisitor's ability, put another bounty on, so you've got 10 potential healing ready to go. It's ridiculous. On Grand Inquisitor's deploy phase, where you've got 6 resources, you could, unlikely that you would need to, but you could put a bounty on, Grand Inquisitor in, put another bounty on, deploy Grand Inquisitor, attack with Grand Inquisitor, ready him, put another bounty on, you got 15 healing. Again, unlikely you're going to need to do that or want to do that, but it's an option. So, yeah, I think the client has great potential with Grand Inquisitor. So, on to the rest of the ground units, and none of them have grit. So, we've got 3 Pike Sentinels. So, it's pretty standard, just 2 cost, early Sentinel option. He's a good target for a shield as well. You'd be surprised how shield on a Sentinel, how difficult that can be to deal with, and just delays things so that you can get other things out that you want to do damage, etc. So Death Trooper does 2 damage to a friendly ground unit and 2 damage to an enemy unit when it's deployed. So because we've got quite a few gritted units, or units that benefit from having damage on them, then Death Trooper can help power those up. If you have no friendly units, then the 2 damage has to be done to himself, which he would survive, but that's not necessarily what he's here for. Jango Fett. In context, Grand Inquisitor again, I haven't really seen him mentioned all that much, but because the client can put bounties on, then we can increase the likelihood that we're going to get this tasty bonus of +3 when he is attacking a unit with a bounty. The overwhelm, we're not too fussed about. If it happens, then great. But 6 attack, he's going to be able to wipe out most things at this stage of the game, unless your opponent has like used 3 resupplies in a row or something. And whenever he attacks and kills a unit, then you draw a card. The unit does not have to have a bounty for that to take effect. But yeah, Jango primarily is going to be used to cash in those healing bounties from the client. Got 2 clan challengers, and I'm sure everyone's aware of the potential for this card with Grand Inquisitor. It's not something to be relied upon because we've got a lot of other things going on really. But 3 power, so it's another target. Raid 3, so it's actually attacking for 6. So with Grand Inquisitor in a non-deployed phase, you could potentially be doing 12 damage to whatever you want, which is pretty tasty. It does also have Overwhelm when it's upgraded. We don't have any upgrades in this deck, so this is only going to be if your opponent has put a bounty on it, which, you know, it's not particularly going to be likely to happen, but it's something to note. Chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum's very interesting with this deck because he does have a when played ability if an opponent has a bounty on it, and it can be in any arena, so it could be space, then he comes in ready. So not quite ambush, but the next best thing. Now, on attack, you choose a ground unit. You may deal 1 damage to it for each damage on Chrysanthemum himself. So what you can do is ready him up with Grand Inquisitor, which puts damage on him, and then then attack the base, do 2 damage to an enemy unit. If you think 2 is not quite enough, not quite tasty enough, then interestingly, it says choose a ground unit. It does not say another ground unit. You can do the damage to himself. So you could, with Grand Inquisitor's ability, ready him up, have 2 damage on him, attack the base, do another 2 damage onto him, which is 4. Then in the next phase, you'll be doing 4 damage to another ground unit. That is useful. Of course, if you've got unpowered gritted units, then his on-attack ability can increase their power as well. So all in all, it's got 7 health as well. So you could potentially get him up to 6. And if you're managing to do that again, get a shield on him if you can. Seventh Sister. She's not particularly used much either, and I would say that is primarily because of her free attack power. It's not great. But because this deck is looking to kill units as we go along as well, then her ability of dealing combat damage, she can deal 3 damage to a ground unit that opponent controls if you attack their base. She has Saboteur, so outside of 1 or 2 exceptions that I can think of, she's always going to be able to attack the base. So you're always going to be able to activate that 3 damage ability. And with Grand Inquisitor, again, he can ready her up again. So you could be doing 6 damage to an enemy ground unit. And again, that is going to be taking out a lot of things that you're going to be encountering at this phase, including potentially some leaders like, well, Rey can upgrade herself, but yeah, both Cassanton and Seventh Sister, it's not limited by non-leader units, so very useful. On to space, and we don't have much going on here, to be honest. We have 2 Inferno 4s. It's primarily here just to help set up your next turn when it's played and when defeated. It says reorder cards on the top of your deck. If you want both of them, you might think what's the point in reordering, but if your opponent plays a discard card from the opponent's deck, then if one of them was more useful than the other, you're going to regret that you haven't reordered them. So it's unlikely, but it can happen. Unlicensed Headhunter. Don't think anyone uses this, and there's a fairly decent reason for that. But it's 2 costed unit, 3 power, 2 health, which is good stats. It has Saboteur, so you're always going to be able to hit the base outside, again, of 1 or 2 exceptions. But when it's exhausted, it has a bounty of heal 5 damage from your base. So you're going to need to think about sequencing if your opponent's going to try and take this out. Alternatively, if your opponent's put in a 7th Fleet Defender and you've not done any damage to their base yet, then guess what? Just go and take the 7th Fleet Defender out. They can claim the bounty, but it's not going to do anything. Final space unit, 2 punishing ones. So this can be potentially readied up multiple times because of Grand Inquisitor's ability, spoiler alert, keep fighting, and also its actual card ability of when an upgraded enemy unit is defeated. So shields count as an upgrade, but you would have to use an insta-kill card like Takedown, which we do have, again, spoiler alert, or if we put a bounty on them, as all bounties are upgrades. So at max potential, because you can ready it twice with Grand Inquisitor when he deploys, potentially in a phase, plus its innate ability, plus keep fighting, you could do 12 damage. Again, highly unlikely, but it's possible. On to the events. We've got Desperate Attack, which only costs 1. It's basically a situational and cheaper Surprise Strike. Slightly weaker as well with only 1 less attack. But as we are going to be damaging our units ourselves as it is, then this situational part doesn't really become a problem. So it is always going to be able to be played pretty much. We've got 3 Keep Fighting. So this allows us to really double down on Grand Inquisitor's readying power. Every single unit's base power in the deck is 3 or less. So every unit's a valid target. It doesn't specify non-leader units either, so you could actually use it on Grand Inquisitor. So you ready him up, which then enables him to attack again to ready something else up. So yeah, you could get quite a chain going on. Another great target is, of course, the client for Keep Fighting, because then he can put his bounty on it again to get more healing in, if that's what you need. Similarly with Cassanton and Seventh Sister, use Keep Fighting on if you need to whittle down their ground forces even further. Now, Power Failure, I probably wouldn't recommend in general because it's situational, but in my locals, I've been encountering a few heavy upgraded units that I've not been able to deal with. So that's why I've got 2 of these in here. It does have a bonus of you can get rid of debilitating upgrades like Frozen in Carbonite, Imprisoned, Entrenched, etc. And Old Faithful, Traitorous. So if your opponent's played Traitorous, used all their resources, play this out, you just reversed what they've done and they can't do anything else. So yeah, can be a good swing in that sense. Got 2 insta-kill cards in the deck, which is 3 of Power of the Dark Side and 3 takedowns. So Power of Dark Side is going to get weaker when set 3 comes out because of token units, assuming people actually decide to take that route. But if you're able to isolate the opponent's leader, then they are forced to defeat that unit. This and Takedown I would try and keep for the space arena because we are lacking in space. Um, so yeah, we don't shy away from attacking units in this deck anyway. Takedown, again at this stage, most things are going to have 5 or less HP. So yeah, you should have a good number of targets that you can use for that, and especially in space. Just the one upgrade in this deck, and it's not even an upgrade that you'll play on yourself, it's a bounty. So public enemy, when you claim it, you get a shield that you can apply to any unit. So you could put it to your leader if you wanted. I would say you got better targets, such as Kazantan, Seventh Sister, Pike Sentinel is an excellent one. Sonara San, if you get her to her max power or close to it. So yeah, we've got just the two of them. If you've got Django Fett out as well, then he attacks for 6, becomes extremely easy to claim. So here are just some kind of other options that you might want to consider. Moment of Peace, give a shield token to any unit. As I mentioned, we've got multiple really good targets for that in this deck. I'm not a fan of the power upgrades with Grand Inquisitor because that then takes it out of range of both Keep Fighting and his own ability. So it's kind of a bit counterproductive in some senses because, as a reminder, Kazantan and Seventh Sister, the main reasons we have them are to kill the opponent's ground presence. If you add lightsaber or electro staffs to them, you can't ready them up again. So it kind of is self-defeating in that sense. Long Pike smuggles out for 5, which is really nice, but you can give a shield token to an enemy unit, and if you do, give a shield token to a friendly unit. So if they've got a patrolling V-Wing in space, then give that shield token, fine, we don't care about that. Give a shield token to our own friendly unit of a Death Watch Loyalist that's hitting for 5 at the moment. Good luck dealing with it. And then the other one, Rugged Survivor. 3 base attack power, it's got grit, so it can be readied up. And then on attack, if it's your controller leader unit, you may draw a card, which helps with providing more options later on, or if someone's playing Pillager against you, for example. But also, Grand Inquisitor probably isn't seen as much of a threat because of his pretty poor stat line, and he's not going to win games by himself. So I think it's more likely that you are going to be able to have these two on the ground at the same time to take advantage of that effect. So that is the Grand Inquisitor slight control deck. As I say, don't be afraid to take out units. It's about maintaining superiority so that you can, for want of a better phrase, go ham on their base and take the game away from them. This deck can go quite aggressive if you need it to, but so I think it's got a better balance, and I think that's the better way to go with Inquisitor, because I think otherwise he just fizzles out and you just can't get yourself over the line. So the client helps get you into, well, just reverse any damage that you've already accrued. Takedown and Power of Darkside help you maintain your own units without having to damage them to get rid of the opponents. So yeah, I think it's very well balanced. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see more like this, then please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.